I just wanted to make sure that you listeners are listening to the Drapetomaniac podcast on doayamedia.com. You are, right?
Peace, family, and welcome to this edition of the Drapetomaniac podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is the head Drapetomaniac in charge. And I'm here with my lovely wife,
Angela.
And we're here to have conversations on how to get off this plantation. Okay, so Angela came up with the subject for today, and I thought that it was a really good one. So I'm going to let Angela start off. She's going to tell you what the subject is and then give you her thoughts on it. So, Angela, the floor is yours.
Okay, so we're talking about the plantation and getting off the plantation.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to explore this idea of knowing when to hold them, when to fold them, when to walk away, and when to run. Y'all heard that song? So I think that there are all kinds of plantations that we're on. And sometimes you can run from one plantation to another plantation and maybe not even realize that you're in it. But anyway, so that's a whole nother conversation perhaps. But exploring, how do you know, how have I known when to run and when to stay? We have a general public political conversation about the idea that as Black folks in this country, our blood, sweat, and tears is in this country, and so I'm not going anywhere. I'm invested in this country. This is my home. This is my grandparents' home. This is my great-grandparents' home, and I'm going to stay my behind right here. When I think of this idea of I'm not going anywhere because my grandparents' blood, sweat, and tears is here, I think of it in the same way that I think of, well, people died for me to vote. That doesn't hold much currency for me personally. Because I feel like my ancestors would want me, in my sense of my ancestors is similar to what I would want for my legacy, my progeny. I would want for them to be thoughtful and analytical and to be happy and at peace and enjoy. So if something that I fought for or something that I thought was important, if they go on to have a different perspective and a broader perspective in a whole nother world, in a whole nother time, in a whole nother place, a whole nother theoretic place, then I'm all for that. So I would never, I can't imagine me expecting my children to value the same thing that I valued in a different time, in a different place necessarily, unless it was something that they found valuable. I would hope that I'm instilling in them the ability to make good, solid decisions for them and their children. And I also think of it in terms of personal relationships. I feel like I'm all over the place. But I think of it in terms of personal relationships. Sometimes I've had conversations with people about relationships that they're in where they may not be happy or they may feel something is a little off. But they sometimes will come back to this idea that, but I've been in this relationship. I've invested so much time in this relationship. We've been together for 3 months, 6 months, 6 years, 20 years. And, you know, I've invested so much in this relationship. And whenever the first time is that I heard it, when somebody is like, shit, you invested whatever, but when it's time to go, it's time to go. It's better to cut. It's better to cut off when it's time to end it, it's better to cut it off quicker.
Cut your losses.
Cut your losses. Mm-hmm. Cut it off quicker rather than cut it off slower. If it's over, get out now. The sooner you get out, the better. If it's 20 years in, that's better than 21 years in if it's not right, once you realize it. So that's on the side of leaving. But I think that there have also been times when I have left something, and in my personal life, after I've left it, after it was over, I got information and insight and perspective that shifted the way that I might have handled that situation. My first marriage, when we decided to get a divorce, we didn't really have conversations with our family and friends before we decided to get a divorce, because it was the two of us who were married, and so it was the two of us who were getting a divorce. That's how I perceived it. And after the fact, once we announced it, I was really shocked and surprised at how invested other people were in our relationship, and not in an unhealthy way, because it sounds a little unhealthy, but that there were resources there that I could have mobilized if I had had the insight and the wisdom to be able to mobilize them. And it hadn't occurred to me. I didn't have the maturity to even process it that way. And so I think moving forward, I learned in some situations that before, like I think it was Dr. Phil say, you have to earn your way out of the marriage. So there are some things that, you know, I would like to do everything I could before I divested from moving forward and explore what I could do to divest. I feel like I'm being so all over the place. But anyway, I've rambled long enough. You say something.
Well, I think that the analogy of a marriage is kind of a flawed analogy. Only in that, and you and I have had this discussion before, is when we talk about a foundational premise. If your foundational premise is off, then everything that comes from that premise is going to be off, if not more so. Mm-hmm. And we spoke before on the analogy that somebody kidnapped me, right? And then they took me to wherever they kidnapped me off to, and it turned out to be a mansion. And so they give me this mansion. They say, you know, I want you to stay with me, but you have the run of this mansion. You have $10,000 a day to spend. You have like a beautiful bed. You have all the electronics. Anything that anyone could ever want, you have. You also have people that wait on you. You have your own maid and your own butler, and you have a stocked refrigerator that stays stocked. And after they finish telling me all that, you know what I would say to them?
I want to go.
Yeah, you effing kidnapped me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem with our situation here. Is it started out effed up. Mm-hmm. It started out. You started out dragging me away from my home, mm-hmm. dragging me away from my family, my mm-hmm. traditions, my spirituality, my language,
my culture,
my
land, my legacy.
Right. So there's nothing you can do to fix that.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
Except leave me alone.
Leave me the hell alone.
Right, and that doesn't even fix it.
Right.
But that's all you can do for me. I don't care what you give me. If you give me, like I said, I have like the run of everything and have all this, it doesn't matter. All that matters to me is that you kidnapped my black ass. Mm-hmm. That's all that matters to me. And so there's no getting past that. So that's the only reason I say that's kind of a flawed analogy, because when you marry somebody, you choose to marry them.
Yeah, but that's only if we're talking specifically about black people leaving the United States.
Right.
But I actually wanted to explore this concept of freedom and relationships and when to dig down and when to leave and mistakes that we've made. Like, I wanted to explore it more broadly.
Well, at that point, when you were talking about that, I was also thinking about a job, like the average job that a person may have. Mm-hmm. And they're not happy in their job, or they may even hate their job, when is it time to leave? There's many times that I've just like literally just walked mm-hmm. out. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not one to just sit and just take a bunch of abuse. Mm-hmm. And so for some people, it's like, well, I need the health insurance. I need to feed my family. I need to pay the rent. I mean, that's legitimate reasons to mm-hmm. stay where you're at.
And I don't think I've ever walked out on a job. I think I have to think about it. But one situation I'm thinking about in particular, it wasn't because I needed the money or the health insurance. It was because the work that I was doing, I felt indispensable, which was a flawed premise. Mm-hmm. I felt like I had to stay there to develop that curriculum and do that work. And if I didn't do it, no one else could do it. Mm-hmm. And, on some level, it's like, if I don't do it, then this program is going to fall apart. And meanwhile, I was also writing in my journal, I could see a year's worth of me making analogies between being an abused woman and, mm-hmm. all of this other stuff. So it was not a good situation for me. And when I left, they did fine, or I don't know what they're doing now, but life goes on, and my life has certainly gone on. But it just like in all of my marriages so far, the 2 times I've been divorced or separated, it wasn't at my initiative, it was at someone else's initiative. And I think it's because of the way I process things. I think it's difficult for me to just walk.
Right.
Like, I don't know, even when I should just walk.
Right. Well, I think it depends on the thing too, because I'm not like that with a marriage where I would just walk. But a job, please. I'll walk out. I will walk. I already told you when I was working at that call center, I had somebody on the phone and got up and just left.
But
got my junk and left.
The last place I worked, remember a couple times came home, I was crying at work, and even when I was ready to resign, I was like, well, let me call so-and-so and talk to him, and he never got back to me, so I just went forward. But there was still something in me that felt, I don't know.
Yeah, I've done it, and I've seen people do it. And see, we're trained in this country to be, well, you need to give a 2-week notice. How come you don't have to give a 2-week notice to give me, to fire me or to tell me that my job is gone or whatever? You know, you go in that morning and then they just tell you to go back home. Right? As I saw happen with that group I was telling you about when they laid all those people off. But, this is Ohio. This is a right to work state. So, employers don't have to give you any notice whatsoever that they're cutting you loose. But you're supposed to give them 2 weeks notice, or else you're going to have a hard time when you go to another employer or whatever. Did you know that the United States is the only industrialized country that has it like that? Every other place, especially like Germany, you have to give them 2 weeks. They have to also give you 2 weeks. You know, they can't just come in one morning and tell you you're out. That's just a little side note. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but as far as and the United States is one of the only countries that's like that. That you have to, that it doesn't work both ways.
Well, everything in this country, most things, seem to be set up for the advantage of the wealthy and there's no protection for the people who need protection don't have no protection. Right. The people who don't need protection got plenty of protection. People who need money, we ain't got no money for you. Oh, you don't need money? Well, come on in here. You're full. Your money is no good with us. It's it's backwards world or whatever.
Well, look how the United States treats people who are incarcerated, and we all know the saying that you judge a country by how it treats its most vulnerable citizens. And this country treats the most vulnerable citizens like absolute crap. And so that tells you everything you need to know.
Children, teachers.
But as far as cutting your losses goes, everything, as I told you earlier, always goes back to the casino and the slot machines to me. Is the job of the slots in the casino is to keep you playing until you just don't have any money anymore. You just literally don't have anything left to put in.
And you've already mortgaged your house and car, because I noticed when they brought casinos to Detroit, they got little offices in there for you to borrow money on your house in the casino. Right.
They'll and the same thing
bleed you dry.
The same thing is true of this society. You know, just like on Animal Farm, they just use you until you just cannot be used anymore, and they keep hiking up the age for retirement for Social Security, because the goal is for you not to either live long enough to collect it, or by the time you can collect it, you're so worn out you only live a couple more years past that. And you know, it's obvious what they're doing, and the reasons they're doing it. And then they'll use the excuse, well, people are living longer. Yeah, but as you were mentioning the other day, people are living longer, but do they have a quality of life?
Somebody had mentioned on the video, they were talking about not just lifespan, but health span.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying that I like that term because I thought of quality of life. Like, yeah, you could live to be 150, but if you're on a ventilator for 75 years and can't walk, and, you know, what kind of quality of life is that?
Right. And not only that, but see, as long as, okay, you turn 67 and you finally get your retirement, or 68 and you finally get your retirement, whatever. And then you live another 10 years sick. Well, then you're still feeding the system. You're still feeding the medical and pharmaceutical system. So they're still pulling from you. But then once they can't pull anything else from you, and you actually start pulling from the system, they're ready for you to leave.
But they ain't ready for you to leave when you just putting in.
Right.
Yeah,
that's the point.
Exactly.
And so as far as the United States goes, I'm always saying, you don't have to like physically leave, but you do, in my opinion, need to separate from this system and all of the garbage that's attached to it.
So I remember hearing a long time ago, I think it was like a quote from one of these white presidents, but the concept was sort of like, there are some things that you should go with the flow, and then there are some things that you should stand firm on. And everything is not a battle, and everything is not a go along to get along, and sort of getting clarity about how you determine that. And I think that that's the same thing with our drapetomania. What are the things that, like, for me, I feel like I am invested in Black people. There's there's no way for me to divest. Like the concept, like sometimes I hear people talking about divesting from, as a woman, you should divest from Black men or whatever. Now, I definitely believe that as a person, as a woman, I don't like it in personal context. If somebody don't like me, I don't like them either. I mean, that ain't no issue for me. So if somebody's like, dark-skinned women are ugly, I'm like, good. I don't like you either. Like, right. I don't care about that. But I mean, just in the theoretical, conceptual way, I feel like I'm eternal. I'm a Black person. There's no way for me to divest from who I am. Right. So there's no way for me to divest from Black men or Black women or Black children or Black people, because that's me. And right. So that's something that I feel eternally married to. Now, there are certain things that, I guess individually, that I'm not, I don't feel like, for example, soul food. Like, I don't feel like, well, I have to eat pork because I'm Black. That's not something that is part of, my belief system. Right. That's not something I'm married to. I have to be a Christian because, I come from, that's not something that, I'm tied to. I have to be in America because, that's not something I'm tied to.
Right. There's people that feel like if you're Black, you have to be a Democrat.
Or I have to like rap music, or I have to get a perm or not get a perm, But I do feel invested in deep love and care and concern for my Black family, my Black self, my Black community, and the Black world. And I have, prayers. We were talking about praying. But, I mean, I have deep concern and prayer and love and positive energy for our growth and development. I see us being free. That's something that I am eternally connected to. From what I can, at this point, I don't see how I could not be.
I am definitely tied to my Blackness. Blackness. When I think about Black people, when I think about white people, when I think about Asians, Latinos, whoever, people are different. People are different. I don't go for this, everybody's the same. They're just different, just different shades of whatever, different skin color. No, people are different, and there's something about Black people. There's something about our intellect. There's something about the way that we move. There's something about our spirituality. There is something about us, and whatever it is about us makes people hate us. But I think it makes people hate us because they're jealous of us because they want to be us, and most will never admit it. They can't even admit it to themselves, but they're like, there's something about black people. I look at our people and what we do, and even when we're doing stuff that's silly and making each other laugh and stuff, I'm like, man, black people, there's something about us, that's just different. Which, I mean, that's.
And I would
kind
say,
of hearing that because everybody's different. But.
Right. But I would say, you know how a parent is like, my child is so smart, my child is so special, and every parent is going to feel like their child is smart and special. And I feel like every group would feel that they are special and different. But I do kind of appreciate.
And they are. I'll even go that far. And they are.
But I do appreciate what you're saying, because I feel like at this moment in history, for whatever reason, it does appear to me also that black people have, like people say, there's a special place in hell for you. It seemed like there's a special place in hate for black people. You know, like it just seemed like everybody. Why is it? And what have we done to anybody?
Right.
Like when I look, and maybe my perception is blinded, but when I look at us, I'm like, we just out here trying to have fun. We trying to be nice to people. We trying to survive. We're trying to survive. We trying to contribute. When you look at people on the job, people be working. It's like it's nothing that makes sense to be like, well, I could see why, like I could see why they wouldn't like us, because we be out here dogging people out. We be out here trying to take the light out of, but I'm like, I don't see what's not to like.
What's not to like? Everybody can be like an individual a-hole, but like as a people, we're just a kind, loving, forgiving people who actually tries to bring everybody under the tent. If we have any problem, it's like trying to be friends with everybody and trying to love everybody. And I personally do see that as a problem. It's a problem within a corrupt system. If you're not in a corrupt system, then that's an awesome way to be. But within a corrupt system, it can't work like that. And people take advantage of it. They take advantage of our trust. They take advantage of the fact that we're ingenious. We're always inventing stuff and doing
creative.
Things. Right. And a lot of invention that happened in America through black people was trying to figure out ways to make our lives easier. These lives of drudgery and pain that were handed to us or foisted upon us. A lot of invention came from trying to figure out ways to negate some of that. And then, of course, here they come and they steal it, and we don't get the credit.
And the credit, the money, the freedom. they like, oh, you made a cotton gel? Well, I got something else for your ass to do.
All right. While they're putting their name
freed up
on
some
it.
more of your time. Good.
Right. While they're putting their name on it.
Right.
And getting a patent. So I don't know. As far as this system goes, I don't know. It's like you're in a house that's burning down. There's nothing for me to decide except get out.
What's the best way to get out? Okay, but let me ask you this question. And I actually have an answer, and when I thought of the topic, I wasn't thinking about it like that. But can you think of a time in your personal life or in your life where you feel like you cut bait? Is that how the expression goes? Where you left and you should have stayed. Where you ran and you should have walked away. Where,
Oh yeah, that was when I was supposed to go to college and I didn't.
See, and I was thinking about something else. Yeah. So do you, like, based on that particular experience, are there any principles? Is there anything that you learned from that you've carried forward, or the times, if there are other times that you can think of where you left something and you look back and maybe you regret having left it? Are there principles? Are there ways? Are there strategies that you use now where you can determine in a situation, where you can analyze, is this a situation where I should stay? Is this a situation where I should go? You understand what I'm asking, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that for me, as they say, hindsight being 20/20. You can always look at things that you could have done better, but I would submit that when you're in a problem or in an issue, and you're dealing with it in real time, that you can't know what you don't know, because all things don't apply to, all things don't apply the same way in different situations.
Of course.
Now, if the situation is exactly the same,
you're never going to have a situation that is exactly the same.
Right.
That's not really my assertion, or my. I can't operate life like that, but I do try to learn, like, from the hindsight, which is 20/20. I try to find things that I can take forward to apply as foresight in future situations. Of course, a future situation is not the same as a past situation.
Right.
And so, that's why there's critical thinking, and, why I have principles that guide me. For example, I feel like with that marriage, I think that, I don't think that the lesson that I learned from that is that, you need to tell everybody everything that's going on in your marriage. But I definitely feel that, I'm now more likely to invite selected people in as advice givers and as counsel than I was before. And I also feel much more sensitive to the fact that other people are watching me even when I'm not aware of it. Other people are invested in my relationship even when I'm not aware of it. That doesn't mean that I should stay in a situation that's not good for me, but it just increased my sensitivity that, the things that I have an impact in the world, even if it's small, that there are people who are paying attention to me, who care, who, I was the first in my group to get married. So I got married technically the day that I graduated from college, I got married. And I was the first in my group to get married. And it made a big impact on people in my group. And I didn't necessarily process it that way. So shit, man, ain't nobody paying no attention to me now. Don't nobody care what I'm doing. But I'm just saying,
I do.
Yeah, I'm just being silly.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm not asking you to be like, hindsight is 20. Like, I don't know how to. It's sort of like when we're talking about, well, I used to be an abusive person. I used to be a liar. I used to be a cheater. And now I've learned lessons that I take forward into the future. So no, it's not just that you learn, well, I'm never going to lie about stealing, $50 from Uncle Bob again. No, you might learn a generalized lesson about lying and stealing that you can apply going forward.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. Well, this may not sound like the same thing, but as you were talking about, what I was thinking about was the fact that I'll never buy a car again and make payments on it. Ever. Now that I know what I know about cars, depreciation and so, and these are things that you actually kind of already know because you hear about them all the time. But when you put it into practice and find out the practical applications of not paying a car note and just paying for a car straight out and so on, that has a big impact. And maybe other people see that and they're like, well, brother, they have like extra money at the end of the month, and they're able to save and stuff. Yeah, that's because I'm not paying $400 and $500 and $1,000 for a car.
Yeah, but most people don't know about whether you have extra money or savings or whatever. So
well, if you tell them, and that's the thing, it's not like you're bragging about it. You're like, yeah, well, I found out that if I just pay for this, then I have this much on the back end to either put in savings or put someplace else or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so those experiences can work to help someone else.
Mm-hmm. When I used to, when I graduated from college, I ran youth programs, and then I started to help organizations to develop and run youth programs. And one of the principles that I took into running programs was from something called Black Women's Health Project. We would always start by saying, what's new and good? And so when I ran youth programs, I would have the children, we would all hold hands, whether it was a group of 5 or a group of, and we would set, you know, a group of 20 or 50 or whatever. And we would start off by saying what's new and good.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of our time together, we would hold hands and we would say what we were looking forward to. And I ran into this group probably about 2 or 3 years into doing youth development work. I ran into the group of kids in a housing development in Brooklyn. I lived in Bed-Stuy. I can't remember what community they were in, Crown Heights, whatever. But it was this group of kids, and every day, Miss, we have to hold hands. Miss, I don't want to hold hands. And I was used to that on the first couple of days, and I'd be like, shut up and hold hands. And they just hold hands, and we'd get through it, and it just would be our thing.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, it just seemed like with this group, 2 or 3 weeks in, it was still the same thing. And so I ended up stopping it. And, you know, we didn't do the new and good, and we didn't do the looking forward to anymore. And I also had a practice at the end of a program. I would sit down with each child and debrief with them, especially that was like a 6-week program, 4-week program, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I would sit down with each of the young people and talk to them. And when I sat down with them kids individually, I shouldn't say every single one of them, but 70% of them are like, Miss, why did we stop doing new and good? And those were some of the main ones who were yelling and screaming in the
Right.
group context. And what I learned from that is that's something that I stopped, and I wish that I hadn't stopped it with that particular group, but I learned to never stop it again, because as adolescents, I realized part of their job is to go against authority. They're finding their identity, and then they're also in their group mentality of, you know, since one person was saying it, other people were saying it, and they just had a vibe for their group. But I learned that as the adult, as the professional, that I should have stuck to my guns and done what I knew was right.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in that situation, that's some place where I feel like I left, where I abandoned something that, looking back, I shouldn't have abandoned.
Well, let me bring it full circle then. How does what you're talking about and what we've been talking about apply to getting off the plantation?
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a plantation. I think that I can get off the plantation as in being a part of someone else's system and being a part of advancing their agenda and
Mm-hmm.
being a part of making, advancing their agenda. But I can never get off of loving my people and being for my people.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if I'm the person who, like, when we were watching Underground and the light-skinned woman is like, well, okay, hey, she quoting somebody, ain't none of, if I can't be free till all of us is free.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's supposed to be becoming the Harriet Tubman or whatever.
Right.
But I think this idea of me leaving and just being about me, or me, running away and just being focused on me and my freedom is not something that I can do. I feel like me leaving and divesting from the system in every single way that I can, any way that I can be about investing in my freedom and my people, I'm about investing in my people and my freedom. And anytime that I realize my energy, time, whatever is being spent on something that's some bullshit and that is anti-me and against me and not for me, I'm for severing those ties as quickly and as sharply as I can,
Mm-hmm.
which sometimes is quick and sometimes is slow. But I want to continue to be aware of that and cut those ties and increase my enmeshment and my ties to me and mine. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that answer. That's fair enough. What it means to me is that, again, like in terms of a building that's burning or a ship that's sinking or whatever, I don't perceive time in that way, as far as, knowing when run, knowing when to stop and so on, because I'm just about, I just need to get out of here. I just need, if anything, all my time's going to be wrapped up in choosing the right door to go through to get out. But everything is about getting out. And that's where I am. I talk about it, I eat it, I sleep it, I breathe it, I drink it. I'm like, I want out of this mess that was created for us. And so I also have the belief that when people get free, it inspires other people to get free. And even those who may not even know that they're in bondage, or they may even know it, but don't think that they can get out. Every time you see somebody escape, you're like, well, shoot, they got out. Maybe you can get out. If Ayapo can get out, anybody can get out. And it's all about that. It's all about that mindset, and breaking ties with, especially materialism. I think materialism has our people caught up in a way that is profound. Wanting to buy this and have that and so on, and you just further and further enslaving yourself.
It's kind of funny as you saying that. I was just thinking, we're materially tied to things, and we need to be spiritually and emotionally tied to things. And then I was thinking about, I was watching, there's some drama going on in the online world about some preacher who is a serial cheater, but anyway, I was just, I saw something his wife had written about how many she was watching people have sex and their bodily fluids, and I was just shocked to think. I mean, and I'm not saying that Christians or preachers, but like the nature of it, like it made me feel like curious about their spiritual development and the depth. Like, I would think that someone who's a preacher is a leader spiritually and developed, even if that's not a group that I happen to be a part of. And I know sometimes I can be naive about stuff like that, but I was just like, what she was right. And so anyway, but just as you were talking now, I was thinking, I feel like a lot of our materialism is actually the other side of our spiritual alienation. I think a lot of our investment in the material world and focus on the material world and trying to get personal worth and value and redemption through material things is a reflection of our hunger and our spiritual distress. But anyway,
but well, also you have to be willing to cut stuff loose. And what I mean by that, and I can't remember if it was a podcast or a video that I did that was talking about the tactics the abusers use to keep you there. Like if you're in an abusive relationship, like a man-woman relationship, and it's abusive, and the woman might be trying to get out of it, and they're like, well, okay, but guess what? All that $20,000 that you saved up working for all those years is in an account that has only my name on it, and there's no way for you to get at it. So if you leave, then you can leave all that money behind. Or I have this priceless heirloom that's been in your family forever, and your mother gave it to you it's on her deathbed as she was breathing her last breath, and I have it hidden somewhere in the house. And so you can go on and leave me, but that heirloom is staying here, or that money's staying here. And so it's this feeling of, well, I'm not leaving without my stuff. Well, okay, well, you know what? It's breaking my heart to leave it. I'm out.
Yeah, but see, also, I think, to me, that speaks to spiritual alienation as well, because money represents security. And if I'm secure in God, and if I'm spiritually sound, then I'm good. I'm good. if I feel like my relationship with my mother and my family is tied up in something material, then that's a sign of spiritual alienation. So that's all I'm just exploring that
that's
idea.
fair. I was just using two examples to illustrate how people get tied to stuff. They're like, well, the blood of my ancestors is here. We built this country.
But the spirit of my ancestors is everywhere.
Right, understood. But I'm just saying, you and I know that and have that viewpoint. But there's a vast sea of our people out here that's the mantra that they have. You know, we need to take back what's ours. Number one, that's in ours. But number two, as long as you're chasing after this carrot that they have set up for you, and they know that you're chasing it, they have zero interest in ever letting you catch it or get back what belongs to you or whatever. They have zero interest in that. All their interest is you staying because you don't want to let go of it. And so you have to be willing to let go of it. It's like the people who I heard an art dealer say it. Him and his wife said it, and I heard like this real estate mogul say. They said that the way to be successful when it comes to different deals is that you have to be willing to walk away from any deal. And I mean, and you're not bluffing. You're just willing to walk away from it.
Of course.
And just like I told you, I'll walk off a job in a hot second. I'll be like, okay, keep all this crap. I just want some peace. Keep it all. Right. Keep the cat. I just want some peace. And so you have to be willing to live. Well, that means that everything our ancestors went through, and you know, and they got all this money and built all this, and we basically just let them have it. Yep, we just let them have it. Yep. As far as that goes, yeah, they won. Okay, you won. Bye. You know.
But I feel like that's like, again, for me, that speaks to because there's no way for me to win when I'm miserable.
Right.
There's no way. So when I'm free, then I win. When, you know, like they say, living well is the best revenge.
Right.
Not that I want revenge. I don't care. I'm like, I just want to live. I like to be happy and free.
Right. but you know what I'm getting at. There are people who are like, excuse me, they will leave themselves tied to something.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh, well, you mean they're just going to get away with it? Yeah, just let them get away with it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they got away with it. Yeah. Live, you know, buy it until you'll sleep better. You know, they got away with it. Okay.
But I think that's like
if them getting away with it gets me my peace, then it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So
anyway, that's all I have to say. I mean, I could say more, but I'm trying not to go for an hour. But do you have anything?
No, I think that's it. I mean, I think, you know, there are definitely some times when I've let some stuff go that, you know, looking back, you know, or looking back, I have some things to bring forward in terms of what I let go and what I don't let go, and what I'm invested in and what I'm not invested in. And I feel like my experiences, you know, have helped me to grow and be wiser and be more of use, more of service.
Right.
Of service.
I'll close out by saying this. There's stuff, you know, there's stuff that's in the attic right now, and there's stuff that's in storage that I literally, not figuratively, I literally have not laid eyes on in like 5 and 10 years.
And you're not alone.
Yeah, and if I haven't needed it in 5 or 10 years, then I don't need it.
Right.
Okay, so I said that to say there's certain things that you may feel like you still need and whatever, but you cut that loose and it just cuts a weight off you. It's like cutting a balloon loose, and then it just starts floating away. So that's how I feel about a whole bunch of junk. You know, I wish I had learned earlier when I was in my 20s, to travel light, figuratively speaking, in life, metaphorically speaking, to travel light. Because it seems to me, from the outside looking in, people who travel light in life seem to be so much happier. And you look at them, they don't have this big shiny car, this great big house that has 30 rooms and there's only 2 people in it and all this stuff. They're just living simply and might be living out of their backpack or whatever, and happy as they can be.
And I think of of traveling light as emotionally and spiritually too, because there are some people I know who have a lot of stuff, but like they're not invested in it. So it's sort of like just like a negotiation. Like I could take it or leave it. If I have it, it's cool. If I don't have it, it's cool. If, I'm not carrying a bunch of anger, I'm not carrying a bunch of emotional weight, I'm not carrying a bunch of expectations. I'm moving through the world light. I want to be happy. I want you to be happy. May all beings be happy.
and quiet as it's kept. If you cut yourself off and separate yourself from white people, and I believe this to be the case, is you won't even be giving them a second thought. You won't be mad at them. You won't be happy at them. You won't be. It'll just be they're on earth, just like a horse. You know what I mean? They're or a tree.
That's been your experience.
Yeah. They're around. And they're here. That's just they're in the environment. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not mad at you. I'm not happy at you. I'm not.
That's been your experience.
Yeah, that's been my experience.
I saw a headline.
Just cut yourself off from them. And
I saw a headline yesterday that was saying that there are a lot of black children who are thriving, being at home and not at school with all those microaggressions and BS.
Oh, I believe that.
And I certainly.
I believe that.
Yes, they just free. They at home. They with their family.
Right.
So anyway.
And I would venture to say that when that happens, you don't sit around talking about white folks. You don't think about them. You don't, because it's just because it doesn't matter. It's not an issue. It's not a thing. So. Anyway, that's my say on the matter.
Okay, I just have one more thing to say about that.
You go.
I feel like when I was in my bubble around the museum and around Detroit and stuff, I feel like we spent time talking about white people because that was part of the work that was being done. But it's fun to just, for me, I'm really grateful that I grew up in Detroit and that I had that culture of just being surrounded by black folks and black thoughts and black ideas and black love and I don't know, black liberation and black art and creativity, and it was just wonderful just to be the people you love, the people you couldn't stand, the people who got on your nerves, the people who inspire. It was just fun. That's all.
Well, let me say this because now you got me saying it. I used to do this thing where I would ask people, when's the last time you thought about your car? And I mean, we'd be at work. When's the last time you thought about your car? I haven't. And I say, well, when was the last time you thought about, food? And they'd be like, I haven't. And I would then say, if you drove to work today and your car broke down and stopped just in the middle of the road, it just stopped. And then it took you about 5 minutes and you finally got started back up and you got to work. How often do you think you'd be thinking about that car? And they probably, all the way until I leave work, I'd be like, is this going to happen again? Or you'd be thinking about your car. If you got no food in your refrigerator and don't know the next time you're going to get something to eat, how often would you be thinking about food? All the time. And my point always was, when something is working, when something is going right, You really don't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really think about it. So the fact that and I can only say this about black people. I can't say that the reverse is true of white people. This is just true of black people. The only reason that we even consider white people or think about white people is because there's a problem.
Here they come.
Here they come. And there's a problem, and the problem persists, and it's not going away. And so it's not that we're obsessed with them or anything like that. It's because there's a problem, just like that car having a problem or no food in the refrigerator being a problem. But once you separate from them, guaranteed you won't even be thinking about them, because there's no problem at that point. And that's where I want to get to. And again, that doesn't mean that you live in some closed off world where you don't see white people. I'll see them on TV or on TV shows or walking down the street or in the store or whatever. But if you're not being messed with and you're separated in your mind and you're free from that, then they probably won't even ever cross your mind.
Right.
The only time they will cross your mind is when here they come.
Here they come.
And that's it. So, all right. So we're running on. We're coming up on an hour.
No!
I know. So, thank you for listening to this Drapetomaniac podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa. I am the HDIC. That is the head Drapetomaniac in charge. And my beautiful, lovely, sweet, intelligent wife,
Angela. I'm just a free black woman. I'm a free. I was free!
plus all that other stuff I said. Wishing you peace and blessings, safety, security, and sanity through separation. And until next week at the same time, which is 9 o'clock, we'll catch you on the run.
On DoiaMedia.com.
Yeah, that's going to come after the thing, which is a little stinger, I think. Peace.
And thank you again for listening to the Drapetomaniac podcast. Tune in next week at DoiaMedia.com. DoiaMedia.com. And again, we'll catch you on the run. Peace.